Hello, you're listening to the Neil Hampton Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined this week by Neil Allison.
Hello.
And Paul Knowles.
All right, mate.
I've gone back into using your surnames again. I'm going to sign you off
names,
as single names. Old habits die hard. So another week, another game, a 2-2 draw against Southend. I wasn't there this time round. Overall, how was it? It seemed like a kind of a double-edged sword. Neil, thoughts?
Correct. Yeah, that's how I'd say. It was in the context of the season. You know, end of the game unbeaten, came from behind, back in the playoff zone. All marvellous, but some question marks.
Yeah, and a missed opportunity, maybe.
Yeah.
Paul, you kick us off with your moment of the week.
Well, Joey, I'm absolutely, I'm beyond angry about the fact we haven't signed a player up until yesterday I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Who's ended up at Swindon. I mean, I'm almost tearing up my Coventry City season ticket as we speak. I'm so enraged about this player that I didn't really care about and still hasn't signed for us, and I think it's a disgrace.
How much did he go for in the end?
About 600,000.
Yeah, we can afford it.
To a club who have just sold, haven't they? Haven't Swindon sold two of their best players?
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
And you know, the guy has scored, I think it was 11 billion goals in his last 3 games. I think he is literally Messi at this level.
Just like you say, everyone becomes. It's a little bit like the Anthony Martial thing at Man United. Everyone that you speak to in Manchester, the United fans especially, so many of them become European football experts at the drop of a hat, where they know exactly the ins and outs of everything of this player. What Nicky Josie? I don't know. I don't know who is. I mean, bar Dominic Jerom's side, Sammy. Is any who I imagine could do a full profile of the man. Do people really know how good he is, or who's to say that Lateef Elford Alliyu isn't the best striker in the world? Spoiler alert, he's not.
He's not, yeah.
Okay, not the best example, but yeah, we see where you're going with it. I mean, it's just it baffles me that people just. It's all about signings. It's all about signings. We must sign players, and it's like, as we'll discuss this again, there's no denying that we do require maybe 1 or 2 signings. I'm not, no one's stupid. Everyone knows we've got quite a light squad. However, were people there, not there, okay, people weren't there 2 years ago at Sixfields, but we did go through about 18 strikers, and 16 of them were shit. Mm-hmm. And it's just a case of you can't say Mowbray's the best manager we've had in a long time, then slag him off for not doing everything you want him to do. The guy's got his limitations, but he hasn't gone out and bought in crap players.
No, but but that's not what happens, is it? So I haven't heard Mowbray being slagged off. I've heard the club being slagged off, and specifically Sisu.
Because at the moment, Mowbray's the flavour of the month, so you don't slag him off, you slag someone else off. Ostensibly, I'm sure if he'd really wanted a player, he'd have been bought in. I think, they're not stupid either. They know that they're in a good situation. We're flying high at the start of the season. We're in the top 6. It's the perfect opportunity to build on that enthusiasm, isn't it? So I'm sure if the player had been available, they went out and they spent the money. I know, obviously, not a lot of money, but they went out and they bought Vincelo. They are. I would have thought if the player was there and they thought the deal was right, but. It's just the devastation of a player that no one's really cared about before, no one's ever heard of. And I've never seen anyone go, I think we should sign this guy, until we didn't sign him.
I'm going to very quickly, if I can, try and pull up some stats from Ben Pilk's Lions on Twitter. In fact, Neil, you go for your moment of the week while I have a look for this. It was some statistics around the signings that Milton Keynes Dons and Preston and Bristol City made last season. But what was your moment of the week?
I just want to finish up on Paul's point, because I think it's important that I do agree. I agree that there's just signing people for the sake of signing people hasn't worked, never has worked. But I do think there's a crucial point in that we are light, so we can't forget. I'm not saying you've forgotten that, but I think that's partially where the frustration is coming from, in that we are clearly light. When you look at the team from the other day, we had one option really to bring off the bench, and that's going to be a struggle. So I can see why people will be annoyed. I completely agree. I don't understand why people get annoyed about the specifics when this particular player, nobody's got any idea if he's good or not. So yeah, there's my note. But my moment of the week, it was all right the other day, except there's a literal leak at the Rico, which is just above my seat. So I was getting dripped on for the entire match, a solitary drip just hitting me every couple of seconds. So, it's only been there for 10 years, and it's already got holes in it, which is a bit annoying.
When you
Right to Wasps, they own it. So they
Yes.
must know.
Yes, actually, that's true.
It's their responsibility to fix this hole.
They do.
When you said a leak, I assumed it was going to be a sort of the thick of it political leak sense of the word. I didn't know whether that was ultimately where Coventry Sources or whatever the guys is on Twitter now was getting their information from. But no, it's actually a very real leak.
Yeah, a very real, very wet, annoying nuisance leak.
Yeah, ring wasps.
Yeah, I will.
My moment of the week was watching the highlights back earlier and watching Ruben Lameiras jump on Raider Johnson's back to celebrate Johnson scoring. Because
Yes.
I think it's difficult sometimes to gauge the scale of the size of human beings playing football sometimes. And when you watch a man the size of Lameiras effectively look like he'd got in the backpack of Raider Johnson. Yeah, it was astonishing, I thought, but it was something that I enjoyed enormously.
They cut off just before Raiders dance as well. I don't know, you probably...
Oh no, really?
Oh, this weird dance. A little bit like, who's that guy from Swansea?
Gomez.
Similar.
Oh,
But
really?
he just started doing something like that with Lameiras on his back. Which, yeah. For my,
Maybe you didn't notice that Lameiras was on his back.
Yeah, like a
That's a real
mosquito.
possibility, isn't it? That was, surreal all around.
Nice. Let's have a quick musical sting and then we'll do some Southend chat. Okay, so Neil, you're going to talk to us about the Southend game, aren't you? Like I say, a mixed bag, fair to say?
Yeah, and it's. I've written loads of notes about this, and I don't know why, because I'll never be able to go through them all. I'm loath to be sort of negative about things because, like I said earlier, in the context of where we are, it's not bad. We were taking this at any point. Yeah, it's been a good start, but there were just. I think defensively more than anything else, there were some sort of question marks for me, and the performance just wasn't of the same standard as we've seen, to now. So it's always going to make you wonder, is this the way we're going, or is it just a one-off? All that sort of stuff goes into your head. Much like the Wolves game, we weren't poor. We've been so much worse in the past. There were just points where the old Coventry City crept in, and it's not massive criticism, but. You can't really ignore things. So, defensively, we brought Phillips in it, right back. And the rest of it was pretty much some standard, although he did give us a decent outlet moving forward. Johnson and Ricketts in the middle, in Football Manager terms, they would have got, sevens because they scored a goal from defence. Ricketts earned a penalty. I didn't feel quite as convinced by him. Reader was wild. Absolutely wild. I had no idea what he was going to do throughout the whole match, really. So,
Neil, can I butt in a second with a bit of a non sequitur? You mentioned Football Manager there. Can I ask quickly if either of you saw any of the coverage of Deadline Day yesterday?
No, I missed it all.
No.
And admittedly, this is a bit of a non sequitur, but I feel like I've got to get it in, bearing in mind that we are talking about football. Did anybody see that Sky Sports News were using Football Manager stats as if they were facts?
No, I didn't, but I have seen a case study where they actually go on about this, and it's ludicrous.
What the fuck is going on?
I know. It's like we're going to use it as a gauge rating. I've seen Newcastle United stats where Pape Cisse had 20 for 90% of his stuff. It doesn't make any sense. It's a person like me sat there in the background. You can't take it as real.
They had Virgil van Dijk, who signed for Southampton yesterday. They had him, and they were like, inevitably he'll be replacing Maya Yoshida. Let's pull up their statistics. You're just like, they're not their statistics.
No,
they're not based on that's like a vague guess based on from a Southampton fan's blinkered view. What are you talking about, you mental cases?
But then the Football Manager people back it up. They say, well, we're actually 97% correct in our stats. Based on what? It's just crazy. It's all a pinch of salt, and I don't know why people take it so seriously sometimes. I am now.
And I know that I think Football Manager was sponsoring the deadline day yesterday, the most ludicrous day of the football calendar. But that was a step too far for me to be saying, completely straight-facedly talking about it as if it was like real facts. They were like, yeah, you've got to question whether he's really an improvement because it says here that they're both 12 strength. What are you talking about?
I mean, I'm all for stats for entertainment, and I feel like that's what they are a lot of the time. I mean, you read into them what you will, but to actually turn those stats in, which I've been in that chair, I've sat there, and I've just, on a whim decided that Adam Barton gets 15 for something, just because it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm knackered. And that goes into the game. That's what happens. I'm not saying anybody's like that. I'm not saying just guessing all the time. There is an element of thought there, but it's that sort of. You reference something that's gone on in your mind in the past, and that's what you use as, okay, well, I seem to remember a few times him doing this, so I'm going to give him this for strength. It's not real.
Right, I rudely cut you off there. You can carry on your point.
No, you set me off on a massive tangent, and I enjoyed it, but let's carry on. Where was I?
Johnson and Ricketts getting sevens in sort of Football Manager parlance because of scoring both.
Yes. I don't know, Paul. I don't know what you thought about those two. I mean, they still feel solid in the fact that they're big, they're strong, and they're in many senses sort of they know what they're doing. They're experienced, but I didn't feel the same way about them as I have done in previous games. So I don't know if you had any different view of that.
Well, I think Southend worked them out, didn't they? I mean, what Southend did, they didn't match up one-on-one against them. What they did is they pulled wide into the areas between the fullbacks and the centre-halves, and they completely destroyed Raider Johnson for most of the first half by making sure they weren't in a 50-50 battle with him, just making sure that they were in space. And it was quite, I mean, I don't want to have a go at Mowbray, but it was quite interesting. In his post-match interview, he said, we were too open. And you were like, well, if you'd have dropped, you should have told Stokes and Phillips to play as fullbacks and not really break forward, then Southend wouldn't have been able to use this tactic because they'd have been in a line. The problem was the line was... It wasn't a line. There was basically Ricketts and sort of one of the fullbacks was 5 yards behind Raider Johnson and the other fullback, and they kept playing into that space, and I'm sure we'll get onto it. The second goal, Raider Johnson just showed sometimes why he's a massive liability, because he basically just ran after the ball like a dog would if you threw it. It was just, where the hell are you going? And then they played straight into that space. And, I mean, a lot of credit must go to Winslow, because he did it 3 or 4 times, and the majority of the time Winslow just dropped back into that position and we didn't get caught out. And I think Winslow had a very good game in a positional, non-showy sense, because he bailed Raider Johnson out numerous times.
Yeah, I mean, I've yet to see him have a bad game, Winslow. Like you say, non-showy, does his job, but positionally he's superb. He's always there, and when he does get onto the ball, he does something sensible with it. So I mean, we've done really well, I think, getting him in. He's perfect. So defence, a little bit weird. Weren't too keen on that. The focus was all week was on sort of our attacking unit though. What was it? Murphy came in for Maddison, but Murphy was on the left, and as far as I could work out, O'Brien was supposed to be on the right. No, O'Brien was. I can't work out. Was it Lameiras on the right and O'Brien in the middle?
Lameiras started in the middle for about the first 20, 25. For the first 15, he was quite influential. Then he sort of started to be bypassed, and they swapped him and Jim O'Brien. But someone made a point, I can't remember what it was. It was someone on Twitter made quite a good point. I feel a bit sorry for Stokes, because Stokes and O'Brien seem to have quite a good relationship. And I thought in the second half, I thought Murphy had a good game, but I thought he was taking up some of the areas where Stokes was really having a good game against Crewe. And you just that relationship there needs to build, doesn't it? Stokes and Murphy, I think, could be very effective, but you could see sometimes they were trying to get, they were just ending up in each other's spaces.
Yeah, I mean, Stokes actually had his best game I've ever seen him play. I've been a bit critical of him just because I don't think sort of technically he's that great, but he's growing into the role and he's growing on me as well. So I mean, I think, like you say, they were a little bit in the way, and especially the last 20 minutes, it all was sort of Murphy. So Stokes didn't really have an opportunity to get involved. But I think he had a pretty decent game. just back to sort of the first half, though. I thought, all told, it was sort of a decent level of intensity. I think maybe the rain and the pitch sort of helped that. But we had plenty of chances, and if you look back at the highlights, their keeper was making all sorts of saves, and it was. I actually thought we'll probably talk a little bit about John Fleck, but I thought in the first half in particular, he was doing really well. I thought he was playing that game where he looked miles better than everybody else on the pitch. He was stepping onto the ball, and he was just finding the gaps. And we'll more on him later, but the first half in particular, I thought he was a really sort of pivotal player, and he was helping. He coped well on the slick pitch, and he was sort of keeping the pace going sort of throughout that first 45. I thought the quality of sort of the game all round was exposed a little bit by the pitch at points. I mean, it's always a sort of element of consistency where obviously they can control the ball, but occasionally it does show them up. And I thought Lameiras, he was hit and miss. He did have good moments early on. He started really well. He was looking for gaps. He had a good shot, and then he tailed off by the end of the half. Really, he had a few bad touches and it seemed to get to him. But after a lot of pressure, we took the lead, and again it was just a sort of a barrage of shots on goal. Ricketts had he had one. I think Johnson had one before that. The keeper was keeping everything out, and then Johnson did his John Fleck impression and slammed it home. And it was deserved. And you look at that, you think, okay, well, it's going to go winner either way. We're going to do what we've done in the previous games and push on from here, or we're going to do what we've done in the previous games and let in a goal straight away. And it was the second one. And I don't want it to become a mental thing, but because it's only been a couple of times, but it happened again. And this time it seemed to be more emphatic, where it was sort of they kicked off and then almost immediately they were attacking, and there was just no defending happening at all. I mean, I looked back at the goal earlier, and it was just the amount of blue shirts the ball has to go past to get to Noel Hunt in the middle, who stood 3 yards out in front of goal, free header, and it's just at that point you just want to be tight, solid. Do not give them any space, and we didn't again, which is just so frustrating because you work for 30 minutes to get the goal, get the breakthrough, what you deserve, and then it just feels like a waste of time when you just immediately concede again, and then you're back to square one. And then the panic continued, and I think it was only a few minutes later when we gave away the penalty, which, from my perspective, I mean, it was the opposite end of the pitch for me, so I couldn't tell too much. I mean, in a sense, it was daft by Phillips because he did go racing in, but I do feel like the pitch and the slippiness of it kind of made it a little bit hard for him to stop. And I don't think you could see he wasn't trying to slam into the player. I think he was trying to stop. It was just he was too enthusiastic, and he flew in, and it felt like a definite penalty. Paul, your end, what do you think?
Well, I just want to take you back a couple of steps. Before we go on to that goal, I'd like to give Chris Stokes a lot of praise for Brady Johnson's goal, where he was 6 yards out and he had a guy straight in front of him, and he had the wit not to just shoot, and he played a pass, which I think then Ricketts had the shot, which then got blocked. But their second goal basically comes from us having the ball deep, under no pressure. Brady Johnson passes the ball to John Fleck, who's level with Brady Johnson and Sam Ricketts. Fleck doesn't pay any attention to what he's doing. He just kicks the ball forward. Brady Johnson then inadvertently just runs after it like it's a punt at rugby. And it was just like, why have you done that? But where the fuck is he going? And then they got through that area in that left-hand side of the defence. And they had a shot which I think Burge made a good save, didn't he? Pushed it out wide after the criticism he got last week. He got a really good hand to it, pushed it out wide. And for me, I just think Phillips thought just these things happen where two players are going for the ball. Sometimes, if he'd have been there a fraction earlier, he'd have been wiped out by their player. I think it was just one of those, the opposition player just got there a bit first. But as we said at the time, if he'd have pulled out, that guy would have run onto the ball through virtually on goal or into a dangerous position. It's a no-win situation. He either goes for it and wins it, or he goes for it and just misses out, or he doesn't go for it and their players through on goal. So it was a penalty. I mean, it just was, wasn't it? I mean, these things happen in a game. You just hope it wasn't as blatant as it wasn't as stupid as their foul on Ricketts, which was completely bloody pointless. you can sort of see that he just went for it. He didn't get it right. Shit happens.
Yeah, and I don't even think he sort of really went for it as well. There's always that moment where he sort of realises how I'm going too quick here, I'm going to try and slow down, but he'd already committed to moving at that speed, and it was one of, like you say, it's one of those. He's young. It was a little bit daft to fly out, but like you say, he had to make a choice, and he did, and it was a penalty, and there we go. Their penalty, actually, the way they scored it, that's kind of the way I want people to take penalties in wet weather, where you just give it a whack. And Burge got quite a lot on it, but because it was just so wet, it skimmed off him straight into the corner. And I guess it makes sense to move on to our penalty, which there's a lot to kind of be a little bit frustrated by, because I never quite understand why you want to risk regretting things when you pick a penalty taker. And sort of you line up people in our team and you think, well, in my mind, Armstrong scored loads of goals, throw him on a penalty, you'd expect him to score, and even if he doesn't score, there's no regret there. There's no, why did I let Armstrong take the penalty? It's pure logic. He scored loads of goals, he's a striker, he's got a great strike, let him take it. O'Brien doesn't strike me, and never has struck me, as a cool enough person to take a penalty. He's pretty manic. I don't think he's got trustworthy technique. I think it's not repetitive. It's kind of, when he hits it right, it's great, but sometimes, he does scuff things, he makes mistakes, and I just don't quite understand the call. Yes, great, brave enough to step in and take the penalty, but if he misses, you're always going to be thinking, well, why didn't we just let Armstrong take it? But the other way around, there's no regret there. There's just, okay, he's missed it, but it's worthwhile him having a go. And again, I probably would have had him just at least giving it a bit of power, trying to sort of slot it home when O'Brien doesn't work for me. And it's just frustrating, because that's the moment that you look at it and think, well, we get that. This is second half now, isn't it? I just realised I've jumped quite heavily. But yeah, second half, and that, we're level, and then we've got almost like, the rest of the game, to get the winner. And it almost felt like that would have been coming. So it's...
It brings them out, doesn't it? I mean, I always find football quite funny, because everyone obviously has their own opinions, but everyone always looks at it from their own point of view. And you got people around us going, yeah, but Southend haven't done anything all second half. And it's like, well, they're 2-1 up. Yeah, they didn't have to do anything all second half. They'd have been happy. If you'd have given them a draw before kick-off, they'd have taken it. You give them a 2-1 lead, they'll definitely take it. And I thought second half, there was no reason for them to try and score a third. Unless they hit us on the counter. The whole emphasis of the second half was for Conte to try and score. And as you say, if we'd have done it straight away, then it takes the pressure off the team, doesn't it? And allows them to play a bit more open again, because they're not worried about it. But at least the fans stayed with the players, which was quite nice.
Yeah, it was another good atmosphere, I thought. I mean, the one thing that you can say, and I was critical of it, and I still wish that we didn't have a whole stadium or whole stand closed, but so far, the games we've had, it's been good. Obviously, what's going on behind the stands and in the back end is absolutely ridiculous, with no toilets and all that sort of stuff. You can't move. But when you get out into the game, it's a really good atmosphere, and everybody's behind the team. And even when we let in that second goal, straight away, fans right behind the team, and it's a different kind of atmosphere, which is nice. And I guess winning games early on in the season helps. I mean, just to be fair to us, because I think we've been quite critical to this point, again, we found a way. We found a way to make sure we didn't lose that match, where we've been there before, where it's just been one of those nights we don't get the goal. But it was a decent goal, a good corner, a corner of purpose for once. It felt like it was part of a move. Ricketts flew onto the ball, and it was a well-worked goal, and it did give us enough time to really push on them for the final 20 minutes, which I felt like we did without really sort of crafting anything. I mean, we realised that our outlet was Murphy. He drew a few fouls from there, the couple on the right side. Realised that he had the best of them at that point, so it was kind of give him the ball and see what he could do. And I like Murphy. I think he's very direct. He's got good pace. I'm not entirely sure whether he's cute enough yet to sort of, when he's around the box, I kind of feel he's direct. He'll get to the box, and then he's just going at 100 miles an hour, and there's very little beyond that. And he's got a good shot on him, obviously, but where he needs to kind of find the little touch or the little pass, it doesn't seem to be there just yet. But we've only seen a few games of him, so it could be there. He's just not had the chance. I'm just thinking back because I've got so many notes. I guess Fleck's hilarious second half performance is worth noting. Like I said, first half I was keen. I thought he played well. He was on it. He was doing what he should do, and then he had the most sort of up and down second half I've ever seen from one of our players. It was like a yo-yo. It was like one good pass, you think, okay, he's back, and then he'd just get the jelly legs and one manic pass, and then lose his confidence, and then it'll come back again. And it's just odd to see him like that, because usually trustworthy just because it's John Fleck and you can trust his technique, but he didn't seem to trust his technique very much in that second half. It was kind of, he was getting the ball, they were crowding me a little bit, and usually, and even in the first half, he was dropping his shoulder, nudging it past players, and he lost it for a little bit. And there was a 5-10 minute period where he was playing, really quite poorly. But I think the one thing we can say about John Fleck is that we know the level that he can play at. We've seen it enough this season. I think we're okay to put that down to, okay, yeah, he was having a bad moment, but it was just not funny, because obviously you don't like to see your players playing poorly, but it was just bizarre.
It was very similar to his performance against Rochdale, where he just went for a spell where everything he did was just awful, and it was like either just behind, just in front, or and one pass he tried this. He had options down the left, and there were like 3 really good options, and then he tried this pass to the right wing, and it was like a little wedged chip, and it was just so woeful. You were just looking at going, what was going through your mind that you thought that was the best option? Because surely you could see there were far, far better options on. But last season I've been a bit more grumpy with him, but this season, as you say, it was just a bit more funny, to be honest. You mentioned Murphy. I thought Murphy, apart from he has a slight propensity for having far too many long-range shots, and I completely agree with everything you said about Murphy, about him getting to the edge of the penalty area and then sort of lacking something. I think that was very much the same with Nathan. Is it Redmond, who's at
Norwich?
Yeah, and I think some players, it just comes. Maybe he's going to get a run of games now, isn't he? I mean, he should be first choice for the next 4 or 5 months, or as long as he wants to be first choice. I think he's definitely got something about him. The final thing I'd like to do is praise a little podcast that we all listen to and enjoy. Last week, one of us decided that their goalkeeper was the man to watch, and I think we all agree that he was pretty bloody good, wasn't he, young Mr. Bentley?
Yeah, some magic saves.
Yeah, the highlights looked pretty good from what I saw. That one, very much towards the end, where he gets down incredibly quickly to palm it around the post, it was really something else. I've seen a few people saying, what on earth is he doing in League One? Is that, I mean, you saw much more of him, you saw the full game. Is that fair? Did he really look stellar, or was it just a very good performance?
It's kind of hard to say for just one game, because we've all seen every keeper have a good game. Sometimes I wouldn't like to say, but as far as that went, he was good, great saves, decent kicker, okay.
If Steve Simonson played against everyone else like he used to play against Cov, he'd have had about 150 England caps.
That's it, isn't it?
It's very, I mean, he looked very good. I mean, the save from Tudguy in what was the last kick of the game was as good as you're going to see. I don't think there aren't many goalkeepers, I don't think, at our level who would have saved that. And that's all you can really go off, can't you? Is we've said that over the years about some of our goalkeepers, is Westwood would save some of the shots that other goalkeepers wouldn't save, and he seemed to do the rest of it pretty well. The other thing I think we should get praise for is
from ourselves or from someone else this time?
From everyone who's listening, is at half time, and Moby must have just sort of got to that bit of the podcast during the game when he decided to bring Tudguy on at half time, because I think Tudguy. We all know I'm not a massive fan of Tudguy, but I think when Tudguy decides to play to his limitations, he gives us something that no one else in the squad gives. I thought that when he came on, our attacking prospects are better. I thought he holds the ball up, and Maddison holds it up in a completely different way. But without Maddison there, you really noticed how, not only small, but how immature we were with the ball, and how easy it was for Southend to dominate us in that way that when you're under pressure, teams can get on top, and you've got to relieve that pressure. I didn't think we could do it without Tudguy, and I thought that before the game, and it became evident during the game. And we discussed it at half time, and we were like, well, what would you make any changes? Like, yeah, you'd bring Tudguy on. We weren't sure at what point, and obviously you brought him on at half time. And I thought as the game went on, you really noticed his influence on the game, because he was just linking it better. And he's not a target man in terms of you can punt the ball up and he's going to win the headers, because he jumps like Mick Quinn, where the ball's landed, but he's landed by the time the ball's got to him. But on the floor, he was linking it, and he's better with his back to goal in terms of linking it that way. I mean, the only issue I have, well, one of the issues I have with two guys, I don't think he's a goal scorer. And one thing that I sort of, again, that works against us slightly against Southend, is I didn't think we worked their goalkeeper enough from inside the area. He made a couple of really nice saves from Murphy's shots from outside the area. But when we put in decent crosses, there was no one to be on the end of them, and that was a shame, because you get the feeling if we'd have managed to sort of put a few more bodies in the box at times, we might have got a better end product.
Any other final thoughts, very, very quickly, before we move on?
Very final thought about the bastard ref who didn't let us take a corner at the last kick of the game. What sort of person does that? He let us. It was. I don't even think it was 4 minutes. He let everybody set up. Why wait until we moved over? Something's about to take the corner and then blow the whistle. Just a knob. I can't stand injustice.
If he hates football so much, what's he doing being a ref?
I know. He just hates life.
How could you not? Do you remember the one that I remember that was the most absurd of those? Must have been in the late 90s, early 2000s. Was there was a ref let Wimbledon take a corner and blew up once it had got into the air. It's because they scored. It dropped on, I think, maybe Marcus Gale's head, and he scored. But he was like, "No, I'd called full time before." You were like, "What's wrong with you, you psychopath? What? Why? Do it or don't. Don't let them take the corner and then blow up, or just be a fucking decent person and let them take the corner and do it." Yeah. Anyway, again, non sequitur.
So that sent me away in a sort of a soaked mood, because I'd obviously been pissed on all game as well. So.
Yeah, it sounded like a bit of a bad day for you. But sorry, go on, Paul.
Just on what Neil said at the very start about the game. It was one of those games where I did feel like we dropped 2 points, but I did feel like Southend deserved a draw. And to be honest, I thought it was another good game of football. I think it was quite interesting to watch. Yeah. And we've been lucky so far this season at home. We've actually had some good games of football. And Southend are quite a cynical side. They're a bit niggly and not the most attractive side to watch, but they did come, and they didn't just sit back in 2 banks of 4. And, it was a good game of football. Phil Brown's still a twat, but it was a good game of football.
Right, onwards. After this, we're going to do some Only Correct and some Burton preview, and we've got a handful of plugs. Okay, Only Correct.
Okay, who wants question 1 and who wants question 2?
Neil, I'll let you decide, because I think I've jumped in the last couple of times.
Have one, please.
Question 1. All right. This is slightly commentary related. John Lukic. So what links these 4 footballers? John Lukic.
Oldest goalkeepers to appear in the Premier League.
Ooh, no. Peter Shilton.
Ooh, one more.
Stanley Matthews.
Blimey. It's definitely something to do with being old. Oldest players to play for England?
No, do you want the last clue?
Go on then.
Steven Grisovich. The Coventry link.
Coventry link. No, I just old. There you go. There's my link.
Okay.
Is that it?
well, they are old, but Joey, what's unique about these 4 old footballers?
Did they? Who was it? So it was Matthews, Shilton,
John Lukic, Peter Shilton, Sir Stanley Matthews, and Stevie Grisovich.
Did all 4 also have a cricket career of sorts?
No, they're the only 4 players to have played in the top flight in 4 separate decades.
Oh, nice.
Lovely question.
Great question. So Neil was right first time when he said that they were old.
Yeah, ostensibly, yeah. I thought, yeah. So there you go. I was looking for another Steve Grisovich based question, and I ended up with that one.
Right, bring it.
Okay, Joey, Anderson.
Were these players worth over £20 million that played us in the 2-0 game in 2007, 2008?
No. Marquinhos. I'm sure I haven't pronounced that correctly.
Oh, no, go on.
Luke Shaw.
Oh, wow, okay. Anderson, Marquinhos, Luke Shaw, and...
Anthony, is it Martial?
Martial.
Yeah.
Are these the 4 most expensive teenagers in the world?
Correct. Can you believe someone once spent £26 million on Anderson?
Weirdly, yes, I can, but this is on to, again, total... yeah, let's move on.
And also, this is obviously, I'm now showing my age. I'd never even heard of Marquinhos.
Yeah, the PSG defender.
Oh, is he a defender?
Yeah, decent player. To be fair, decent player.
I would like to think so for 27 million. But yeah.
He's
Right.
That makes him half as good as David Luiz.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Okay.
All right. So Joey, you can have question 1 or 2 in the second round.
I'll have 2, please.
All right. I want the actual figure.
Oh, brilliant.
290 million.
Is it 868 million?
I'll give it to you. It's 870.
Okay, so what's it?
Yeah, you're 2 million out. I'll give you the 2 million.
What is it? The last 4 transfer?
No. This summer, the Bundesliga spent 290 million. La Liga spent 400 million. Serie A spent 405 million. The Premier League spent 870 million.
They're mental.
I think I went to the Blizzard live event in Manchester yesterday with Jonathan Wilson, David Kahn, Andy Brassel. And they were talking about the directions that money has gone into and how the Bundesliga specifically has reaped enormous financial rewards as a result of it's the next TV deal apparently is the reason that it's been so fruitful this summer, is that the next TV deal is going to be absolutely insane and people are spending the money on it already. Incredible. Anyway,
it was on the BBC. I think 85 or 75 million went into the Football League from the Premier League. Like 205 million went into between Premier League clubs, and 585 million went out of England.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can't complain about the English football team being shit when all the money's going out of England on players who are 23, 24, 25. They played their 200 games somewhere else, and they're coming in as ready-made first teamers. It's just like you're giving the kids nowhere to go because you can't force yourself in, can you?
But you've also got the absurd situation where you could either sign Matteo Darmian for £13 million, who's been wonderful from what I've seen so far, or you could sign John Stones for even for £40 million. You can't even get John Stones for that. We wouldn't be the first to say that the Premier League is fucked, but I think that's probably a sentiment that we can all get on board with. Neil's got a question, I think.
Yeah, Neil. Peugeot.
Oh, Pugot. Right. Right. Pugot. CityLink.
Correct.
Oh, strong.
There we go.
There
So what was that?
I've got it after first. Sorry, go on, Neil.
So, why would it stop at CityLink? What was it? Just
Peugeot, Subaru, Cassidy Brothers, and then the fourth in the link was CityLink.
Right.
On sponsors.
Why wouldn't you have gone up to this season?
Because we didn't have one last season.
But we have at the moment.
We do. We have Allsop and Allsop. But I didn't think anyone would know that. No offence to Allsop and Allsop.
Tune in next week for another edition of What is Paul Thinking?
Yeah. Paul's thinking many things this week, but not many of them were Coventry City related.
Oh dear. Right, let's do some Burton preview. Let's do some Burton preview. I'm not going to do very much because I don't know a great deal, and I only had a little bit of time to pilfer from Side Sammy's season preview, which is basically let's give you a glimpse behind the curtain on this. That's basically all that's happening. If I'm doing it, that's pretty much what I'm doing. Just go to that. Just go sidewayssammy.wordpress.com. You'll find it on there. You might as well turn it off now. On a semi-serious note, the big show at Burton Albion at the moment is their manager, who is Jimmy Ford Hasselbank. Their fans seem to be reasonably disappointed when Gary Rowett left last season, but Hasselbank took over and did an incredible job. He seems to be a cult of personality manager from what I can tell. He's doing a really, really good job. They finished top of the league last season. Players to watch out for, they have John Musinho, who is a midfielder converted to a central defender. And they signed Callum Riley from somewhere. Apparently he's a good player. Sorry. They have had... imagine just knowing all of this stuff intuitively. They've had a pretty good start to the season. They're in third at the moment, and they drew with Doncaster. They lost to Middlesbrough in the League Cup, but they've beaten Shrewsbury. They beat Scunthorpe, and they're having a pretty decent time of it. The interesting thing to note about this game on Sunday is that, as we're aware, we will have lost Adam Armstrong and others to international duty.
George Thomas, weird, Harris, and someone else, and Morris.
Yeah, to international duty. The good thing about this is it seems that Burton Albion, if you look on their forum, their fans are concerned about the volume of players that they're losing, which seems to be much higher, including a player who's called Edion Joachim, who's been called up to the Luxembourg squad, which struck me as odd because I would have thought that would have been such a low level of football. Unless he's a really, really good quality Luxembourg footballer, I just wouldn't have seen them getting into a decent League One team. But there you go. They seem to be very, very worried about us. Their fans do.
Really?
Yeah, but I think I would be a little bit more worried about them. They are pretty convinced that they will get their bottoms handed to them in this game.
On telly as well.
Yeah, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's have some predictions then, shall we? Neil, what are you going to go for?
2-2, I think. More defensive madness, and I do worry that we have no options whatsoever at the moment if things don't go our way. So I still say 2-2 because we're like that at the moment.
Paul?
Yeah, it's very difficult, this one, isn't it? I mean, all joking aside, at the start, I did say during my little rant, we are obviously a bit short in players, and losing Armstrong with Madison being out would hit any, I probably would have thought would hit any side at this level. So I suppose it's going to be straight swap Judd Guy in for Armstrong. But if they're losing players as well, let's go 1-0 victory to us.
Nice.
I think it'll be an interesting game between two seemingly quite attacking teams. It's on telly, so everyone's going to get to see it if they're not going to the game themselves anyway.
Because they wouldn't get to see it if they were going to the game.
All right. What, have you never filled for time while you try and think of what score you think it's going to be, Paul? Jesus.
Didn't you notice I did that previously?
Yeah, but I didn't pull you up on it. Hello.
Jimmy Floyd Hasselwank has got a win rate of 63% at Burton.
That's strong, isn't it? You'd be happy with that. I'm going to go for 1-1, I think. But, I mean, it's football, and literally anything could happen.
Innit?
Yeah, that's the input that I put into that. Right, I'm going to wrap things up, but we've got some plugs to do before we go. So first things first, if you're based in Manchester or in the Northwest, the Manchester Coventry City Supporters Club, such as they are at the moment, will be meeting to watch the game in Tib Street Tavern in the centre of Manchester in the Northern Quarter. So drop us a line on either neelamptyshow@gmail.com or @neelamptyshow on Twitter if you want to come down and watch the game with other Cov fans. We've got a competition running at the moment, which is pretty exciting. I think it's probably the first competition we've ever had. If you go on Twitter, sorry, this is a bit Twitter-centric, but deal with it. It's 2015, yeah. If you go on Twitter, @Hallyyink, HALLYINK, he is a chap who has just produced a magnificent print with 4 sort of cartoony versions of Cov players drawn on it. Go on there, have a look, and then head to the @NeilAmptyShow Twitter feed. There is a tweet on there that if you retweet and follow this gentleman, you have an opportunity to win a print from him of the piece in question. Alternatively, you can order them from his website. If you go over to there, you'll be able to find that, or if you just Google Hallyyink. And the final thing to plug before we go is a friend of the show, Steve Phelps, has his new book out on the 87 Cup win. I believe that's available to buy now.
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
And I believe, Paul, that you've read most of it already.
I've read the entire thing.
Do you want to give us a little 5-second synopsis and review? Unless it's crap. Don't tell us it's crap.
It's all right, yeah. No, it's a bit depressing for people of my era who just missed it. It'll be even more depressing for people of your era who completely missed it. For the people who lived through it, I think it'll be brilliant for them. I think it really does sort of bring back quite a lot of happy memories, to be honest. It's definitely an interesting, good read.
You can get that from Amazon. I would hope that it might sort of pop up in the club shop. I know that his previous books have done so in the past. But like I say, get over to Amazon. It's Steve Phelps, PHELPS, and get yourself a copy of that. We'll hopefully get Steve on again soon and he can talk to us a bit more about it.
I'd also like to plug 2 other things.
Yep, let's go.
There is, I can't remember the guy's name, who's doing it's called the Lonely Seasons blogspot.
Laurie Kilpatrick.
There you go.
You'll find him at Al_Kilpatrick, maybe 87, I think. If on Twitter, you better find it.
I'm sure we'll retweet these things, especially. He's doing a blog post after each game, and it's a very good read, and it's a bit more of a... If you don't like swear words, I'd give it a bit of a wide berth, but if your comedic sense is anything like mine, it's one of the better ones, and that's not taken away from anything from anyone else. There are some good ones around at the moment. It's just it's a bit more of a sideways glance, I think it's called. And also the previously mentioned Ben Pilkinson, or Pilkinson, how you pronounce his name, sorry Ben, has just done a very quick blog about why people shouldn't be angry about the fact we haven't signed anyone. And as Joey mentioned earlier, he was going to quote something from it. But basically it just says, the teams who won promotion last season didn't spend a lot of money. No one spends money in League One. You're just going to have to accept the fact that teams in League One survive on loans and frees, and hopefully some good kids. And he's just making that point again. It's called Why Are So Many Cov Fans on the Ledge? And it sums up my views on it as well. So thought that was worth plugging as we're here.
Very, very good. Just to go back quickly to the Lonely Seasons blog, the best review that I've been told of that blog described him as a Russell Brand wannabe wanker, I think was the... So if you like florid language and unnecessarily verbose descriptions of what are usually reasonably standard games, you can get yourself over there. That sounds like I'm taking the piss. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good read to get over there. Neil, have you got anything to plug? Have you got a Daz advert or Football Manager related thing that you need to get out there that the people need to know?
No, doing nothing.
No, I've got nothing on. Okay, cool. Right, well, we will be back next week to talk to you about the Burton game that you'd have all seen. So I guess that's up to you whether you want to waste time with that one. And apart from that, I'm going to say thank you to Paul.
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you to Neil.
Cheers, boys.
And thank you for listening. Bye!